Hello everybody, this is Zoya, the Russian Korean. And today's episode is a little different. Let's just talk about the coronavirus. The coronavirus is actually a family of viruses, and the one that is currently on the rise is the Wuhan virus because it's from the Wuhan province of China. And there are now an estimated 8,000 infected individuals in China alone. And the situation is not really getting any better. The death toll is rising. I believe as of right now, it's something over 130 deaths. I'm sure the number is increasing. It's just that we are not really getting any timely updates. Just a quick explanation of what this coronavirus is. Basically, it's an respiratory infection, and it gets transmitted through bodily fluids, which means every time an infected person coughs or sneezes, there is a risk of the people surrounding that person contracting the virus. And it's kind of difficult to identify early on because so far, I've watched, videos of doctors and also medical experts kind of talking about the signs and symptoms of the virus, and they are very similar to a flu. Basically, a person has a fever and then starts developing mucus and then a lot of coughing, and it's really hard to identify early on whether it's just a flu or if it's actually the virus. So because of that, a lot of people actually who were infected with it did not know early on. So they just went about their, business, their day, and they interacted with a bunch of people. And then, by the time they realized that they have the virus when they're at the hospital, they've already infected like several other people. And in China, the situation is pretty difficult. I do not live in China. I live in South Korea, which is a neighboring country. But I've heard from my relatives living in China and also from some of the videos that have leaked, and I'm going to talk about them a little later. But it's pretty much a state of national emergency. Those people who are not infected are trying to stay at home as much as they can, not really go into public places. If they do, they always wear a mask. They try to wash their hands all the time. If they do go to buy something, it's usually only food. So people really try to avoid contact with masses of people as much as they can. And those people who are sick, it's really difficult for them, especially in Wuhan, which is the epicenter, of everything that's going on right now with the virus, because they just can't reach the hospitals. The hospitals are packed, they're overworked, and as of right now, there's really no tangible solution to the problem. So a lot of people get turned away or remain untreated. And so that just, exacerbates the problem. One thing that I want to talk about is the international response to the crisis, because yes, it is a crisis in China, but it's not just China anymore. Obviously, it's been a few days since the coronavirus has spread to other countries as well, including South Korea, where I currently am. And the response has been really mixed. So some countries, like the country where I am, South Korea, they're taking it pretty seriously. We did all receive Amber Alerts when it first came around. Well, the information came around that somebody who is infected with the coronavirus from Wuhan travel to Korea. In other countries as well, I know in the United States, there is a response with hospitals, kind of raising people's awareness about the virus and what they need to do to try to prevent it. And then a plethora of fresh coronavirus memes out on the internet. We're not going to talk about them today. Basically, there is a spectrum of people taking it like super seriously and people who just think it's a joke. So in the last 48 hours or so, more and more articles have been coming out from fairly, I would say, reputable sources saying that everyone's just overreacting. CNBC saying, here's why the stock market may be overreacting to the coronavirus threat. Now they're talking about the stock market. They're not talking about, just us average people. But nonetheless, the word overreact is there. Market Watch, opinion, 5 reasons coronavirus fears are overblown and 14 stocks to buy now. Again, it's all about stocks. And another source, theconversation.com, the title is fear spreads easily. That's what gives the Wuhan coronavirus economic impact. So I see kind of a thread here of tying the virus to economy and everything. I can't really speak on, the situation with the stock market too much, just because it's just not my expertise, let's put it that way. But the reality is that, yes, the virus is having economic impact within China, a pretty severe economic impact. And it's affecting, obviously, the rest of the world. So yes, the situation, if you look at it that way, is pretty worrying. But what are these people saying in their articles? Basically, they are comparing the situation to the SARS virus back in the early 2000s and how, it was pretty bad. For example, theconversation.com says that 26 countries in a matter of weeks were infected or affected by it. Ultimately, about 8,500 people caught it. And then the mortality rate was about 11%. So basically, they're saying that, yes, the spread of it was bad, but the death rate was low and it was contained. So we really shouldn't, if we judge by the example from, the SARS epidemic, then it really shouldn't be that bad this time around as well. And, this isn't just your average Joe Schmo saying this. This is a professor and chair in the economics of disasters, blah, 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 Victoria University of Wellington, which is in New Zealand, by the way. And that's like one problem I have with these kinds of articles is that like people who are so removed from it are making these big statements like, oh, everyone's overreacting, calm down. And it's like, well, yeah, obviously, people shouldn't panic. Obviously, we shouldn't just, run around screaming that we're all going to die. There are precautions and measurements that you can take in order to avoid getting infected. But at the same time, I just really wonder what they mean when they say you're overreacting or everyone's overreacting. Because what they're claiming is that people are overreacting because the media is over-sensationalizing what is essentially not that bad. And to me, I don't know, maybe I'm not, correct on this, but to me, it just sounds like the only people who would say something like that are those who believe themselves completely out of any danger of, getting affected by it. And also when someone who has like absolutely no solution to the problem just comes into the room and is like, guys, you're overreacting. Like, that's not helpful. Like, what do you even mean overreact? Because like, okay, in South Korea, what happened in South Korea? As soon as the government was informed that there is an infected person on the territory of South Korea that just came from China, everyone, including me, received on their phone Amber Alerts, and it came out on TV, the coronavirus is in Korea. And then they really encourage people to take precautionary measures like washing your hands and wearing masks in public places and, coughing etiquette, like don't just sneeze into your hand and then plaster your mucus all over the place and so on and so forth. And so is that overreacting? Like, I don't think so. Okay, like I understand that here it's a lot more socially acceptable for someone who is perfectly healthy to walk around in a face mask, looking like they just came out of a hospital. Whereas, in America, I've gone around a few times in a mask, not because I was sick, but because I just didn't want to get sick because everyone else was sick around me a few times. And people were like looking at me weird and they didn't want to sit next to me on the train, which was kind of funny. I had the seats all to myself. So like, I get it. It looks weird, but is it overreacting? I don't really think so. I think it's perfectly fine for someone to say, you know what, I'm going to take this measure. I'm going to wear a mask and I'm going to wash my hands so that I don't contract the disease, especially if they're going to a hospital or they are in a really crowded public place. Like, I think that should be okay. And in terms of the stock market and the economy, like in China, it really is a problem and they're not overreacting, I think, because even in the province where my relatives live, they live in a province that's not even adjacent to Wuhan. But even there, they have around like 50 or something people that are affected, that have been infected. And everyone is just staying home. And it's like, it's understandable. And yes, because of that, the economy is at a standstill and no one's going anywhere. And no one's working. And also like Western media talks about like panic and fear mongering. I'm not quite sure what they're talking about. As far as I know, everyone's taken it pretty rationally. And yes, there are, a lot of concerns about the situation, but I really don't think anyone is like going bonkers over it. But one thing that needs to be taken into consideration is that this is China, and China controls all of its social media. So, the information that we're getting from inside China is very limited. But the videos that are leaked are pretty serious, and I'd say a little bit scary. Not to a point of panic, but, they're concerning because they show, overpacked hospitals, people getting turned away, and then others just, talking to the general public saying that we can't really do much about this because there is no solution. And, you worry for those people, and you also become concerned for, the state of your country, your neighborhood, because, the virus spreads pretty quickly. And, on the news, they're trying to show like how they're disinfecting the planes and making everyone feel safe through that. And like, okay, sure. But I'm not sure how effective that would be if an infected person was already on the plane. And so, we have the people on the one side saying everyone's overreacting, and then on the other side, people saying this is serious, this is an emergency, please, take caution, da 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 da. And I'm more on the precaution, being careful side rather than just like sitting back and saying, oh, we're all overreacting, like this is nothing, everyone's going to be fine. Because after seeing some of the videos that leaked from China, it's pretty clear that there is a gap between what we think we know and what is actually happening in China. And yes, it's hard to say if those, leaked videos are real or not. But one thing for sure, at least for me, is that I think there's really no personal benefit for those people to post those videos and make them available to the public worldwide. Why? Because let's say those videos are fake. Okay, if they're fake and the Chinese government finds out, that's a big problem for those people because, as we know, the Chinese government controls all of their social media. They can't access, Instagram, Google, YouTube. They have to use VPN or some other illegal, technically, ways of getting out into the world and receiving or given information. And so if they find out that they've been doing that and they've been posting fake things, then there's really a threat of the government coming after them. And I don't really think that, just posting some random fake video and knowing that you have that kind of threat is like rational, So to me personally, it seems like those videos are real and the people are just really concerned for others and for their country. So they're trying to get word out as much as they can, despite the threat of Chinese government. I'll put a few links in the description just to some of those videos so you can see there are a few more I know out there, but I'll just post those that I've seen. Anyways, so far, what is my conclusion? Are we overreacting? I think no. But do we need to panic? I don't think so either. Just if you are in the public, especially in hospitals or really crowded places, just wash your hands, wear a mask, observe cough-in etiquette, and, my advice is better to be over-prepared than under-prepared. What about you? Do you think that everyone's overreacting? Do you think that there really is nothing to worry about? Or do you think differently? Let me know in the comment section below. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and subscribe to my channel. This was Zoya, the Russian Korean. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.